presentation created by the Gravity teams. Our team have a total of 3 members, Diana, Nicole, and me. Today we would like to give a presentation about Dunbar's number. Let's start off with a little bit of history. As most of us already know, the human race has always had group size since the hunter-gatherer era. Humans have a heritage of having a great societal relationship. For several 100,000 years ago, our social world is still the same as today. With that in mind, let's move to the next one, where we can take a close look at our definition of friends. The definition of a friend is that one person who you know, care about, and have a bond of trust. It is a person who you give priority to compared to others when it comes to spending time with them. According to Robin Dunbar, a friend is someone who, if you saw randomly at 3 a.m. in a transit lounge in Hong Kong, and after not seeing them for a while, you wouldn't feel embarrassed about going up to them and say, "Hi, how are you? Haven't seen you in ages." You would have a lot more people adding you to your social circle, but most of them will be in the outer circle or further out circle. It is very hard to find someone who will be in the inner circle, which we consider as the true friend. And the placement of these relationships depends on the amount of time you spend or invest on those people. Now, let's talk about what all this is about. It's what we call a Dunbar's number. Dunbar's number is a theoretical cognitive limit to the number of people with whom one can maintain stable social relationships. These are relationships in which an individual knows who each other's person is and how each person related to every other person. Proponents assert that number larger than this generally require more restricted rules, laws, and enforced norms to maintain a stable, cohesive group. No precise value has been proposed for Dunbar's number, but a commonly cited approximately is 150. That suggests there's an upper limit to the amount of relationship we can maintain who's in the inner circle, who we consider as a close friend. That number, for the record, is 150. Dunbar's numbers was first proposed by Robin Dunbar, who theorized that this limit is a direct function of relative neocortex size and that this in turn limits group size. The limit imposed by neocortical processing capacity is simply on the number of individuals with whom a stable interpersonal relationship can be maintained. In the outer social circle are the ones who don't know you much about you, and you probably don't know much about them either. Okay, now, since we know what Dunbar number is, let's talk about why and how do they came up with the number 150. You might now aware of the number 150, but it has always been a 150 for as long as we have been a species. For example, let's talk about our brain. Our brains are massively expensive, consuming about 20% of our total energy intake, even though they only account for about 2% of our total body weight. It is 150 because our minds lack the capacity to make it any larger. Network allow you to prevent relationships from decaying over time. In the social world, the reach of most people's social world was pretty much confined to those they encounter in person. Our social world has been redefined by social networking sites like Facebook, MySpace, and Bebo. Extrapolating from the relationship for monkeys and apes, give a group size of about 150. The limit on the numbers of social relationships that humans can have, a figure that is now graced by the title Dunbar's number. One place we might look for evidence for human group size is among pre-industrial societies, and in particular among hunter-gatherers. Most hunter-gatherers live in complex societies that operate at a number of levels. The smallest grouping occurs at the temporary night camps and have been between 30 and 50 individuals. These are relatively unstable. However, with individuals or families constantly joining and leaving as they move between different forage area or water holes. The largest grouping is normally the tribe itself, usually a linguistic grouping that defines itself rather strictly in terms of its cultural identity. Tribal grouping typically numbers between 500 and 2,500 men, women, and children. Sometimes it takes the form of clan that have ritual significance such as periodic celebration of coming of age ceremonies. These clan groups turn out to have a mean size of 153. Our social world is still what it was several hundred thousand years ago. The number of people we know personally, whom we can trust, who we feel some emotionally for this, is no more than 150. In business, organization of fewer than 150 works fine on a person-to-person basis. But once they grow larger than this, they need a formal hierarchy if they are going to work efficiently. Factory works by personal relationship with a sense of mutual obligation encouraging workers and managers to operate rather than compete. Militaries seem to have come up with the same rule of thumb. In most modern armies, the smallest independent unit is the company, which normally make a total of 130 to 150. In religions, the Hutterites and Amish, two groups of contemporary North American religious fundamentalists who live and farm, have average community size of around 110, mainly because they split their community once they exceed the number 150. They find that when there are more than about 150 individuals, they cannot control the behavior of the member by peer pressure alone. Okay, now let's move on to the next one, where we will talk a little bit about social network site. As we all know, the form of communication in the past was through face to face. There's no way to get around it. You can't make a phone call, a text message, email, or Facebook each other. There's no update status where we can see how's everyone doing. The only way people communicate was through mails in form of pigeons. Set a day and time where they can meet each other. But today, it was a whole different story. Our social world has been much bigger than before thanks to MySpace, Facebook, Bebo. We all became friends even though we have never met or talked to each other before. We can share a thought to someone who's not even a friend, someone who just added you to his or her friend list. With that being said, now let's talk about Dunbar number and the social networking, how they related to each other. According to Chris Brogan, a New York Times best-selling author of books and a co-founder of PodCam New Media Conference Series, Dunbar's number could exceed the number of 150. One way to beat Dunbar number is to make it work reverse. If people think of you as a part of their 150, then they came to you and they seek you out. This comes from having some value to offer. If, for instance, you're helpful in finding other business, those people will seek you out next time they have an opportunity or the next time they need your help. You're in the network. You are not in their mental system because they've got you in mind. You are not required to remember every single person you've ever met in your head. Further, you really can't. The thing is, how you will manage your relationship is in a way that you can stay open and personable. One way is a database. Contact management system count, your email client counts, depend on how you use it. Another part is keeping the channel open. One of the obvious value of social media like blogging or using social network is that it keeps a live pulse of information moving along. In the business context, my blogs tell you what I'm thinking about, what I'm working on, and how I might be useful to you. Again, this gives you some of the burden of maintaining Dunbar's number, which frees you up to accept more of a network. More recently, Dunbar number has come under criticism from someone who believed that social media and networking online make Dunbar's number exceed irrelevant. According to Jacob Morgan, a principal and co-founder of Chess Media Group, author of the Collaborated Organization, the first comprehensive strategies guide to emerging collaboration in the workplace, endorsed by executives such as the former CIO of the USA, CMO of SAP, CMO of Dell. There's no need to beat in the Dunbar number. In fact, the whole discussion around this number as it's related to social media and online network is a bit irrelevant. Morton Hansen states that the real value of collaboration and of network doesn't come from a strong relationship and networking, but from a weak one. In fact, one of more network rules is actually build a quick weak tie, not a strong one. According to Morton, research showed that weak ties can prove much more helpful in networking because they form a bridge to world we do not walk within. Strong ties, on the other hand, tend to be world we already know. A good friend often knows many of the same people and things we know. They are not the best when it comes to searching for new jobs, ideas, expert, and knowledge. Weak ties are also good because they take less time. People can keep up quite a few weak ties without them being a burden. What social networks have allowed us to do is to build massive network of weak ties. These weak ties allow us to reach out to folks for guest articles, business requests, speaking engagement, or ideas and advice. Meanwhile, it is possible that social media has increased Dunbar number or make it irrelevant altogether. According to Anthony Juliano, an experienced speaker, training marketer, writer, and social media strategist, we still have 24 hours to work, eat, sleep, groom ourselves, clean our homes, commute, and do everything we need to do. If you spread yourself too thin via social media, something gotta give. Maybe it's your job, the work you would be capable of doing if you put in more time. Maybe you end up staying late to catch up and your relationship with your family and friends take a hit. Or maybe you're trying to do it all and lose a few hours sleep. Eventually, your health's going to suffer, and by extension, so will all your relationship. The key is know your limits. How many relationships can you maintain before you start to erode your relationship with those most important to you? How many different places can you try to focus your attention before you stop giving the right amount of attention to the stuff that really matter the most? Everyone's answer will have a little bit of difference, but everyone's bound to the same limitation. The truth is, someone matters more than others. If everyone's is a priority, then no one's is a priority. Okay, now let's sum it up with the information system that's available for all of us today. Within a business and information system perspective, thanks to website, database, intranet, we are able to keep in contact no matter where the geographical location, and this helps us meet business goals. We are able to keep track in a much more efficient and rapid manner than before. Although Dunbar number is 150 for our inner circle friendship, we believe in the technology available to us nowadays help us get closer to those relationships we have, whether they fell within our inner or outer social circle. Okay, this is where I will end this presentation. I hope you all understand what Dunbar number is by now, and will always remember the number 150, what it is, and why it's so important. And these are the website where I get all my information resource from. If you have time, please check it out and do more research if you wanted to. Thank you very much.